Rebecca's here.
Yes.
And I saw Brad too.
Yes.
Yeah, he's cleaning up his shop. I wonder if he knows he's actually on camera and started.
I hear y'all. I like bringing stuff out for these meetings. Are we live for everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, right. Oh, gosh.
Oh,
It's funny. No, that's good though. I think that's a great start.
It's the best start.
I'd like to welcome you all to this, our fourth plugged-in series by the Adelaide Project. For those of you that do not know me, I am your host, Clarissa Llanesa, interior and lighting designer, creative director at the Adelaide Project. Every few weeks, I will be sitting down with creatives to talk about their experiences, what excites them, what makes them tick, uncovering the curiosities and dissecting the dynamic path that led them to where they are today. I am excited to welcome Christine Ralphs and the Friends of University Avenue, the team that has been working tirelessly on reimagining our very own University Avenue in Toronto, a citizen-led initiative for public art installation. And the story behind this project, it's an incredible one. And I am very excited for all of you to learn it a little bit more while we discuss the whats, the whos, the hows, and the whys behind the project. I met Christine not long ago through my husband, Stephen Kay, who is partners with Paul at Banani Lighting. And it won't take any of our viewers long to realize why I immediately fell in love with her spark, brains, personality, and passion she puts into everything she does. Christine is the co-founder of Lloyd Ralphs Design and Club Monaco, yes, the store. We will also be chatting with Paul Boken, VP of Banani Lighting, who is self-described as lives to light. Not just the wonderful projects he works on, but I think also the people that surround him. Brad Hinson, co-founder of Studio F-, who used to work as an associate architect at Diamond Schmidt. He's an incredible, passionate, hard worker with a hot pink shirt. And last, but definitely not least, Rebecca Carbon, principal and founder of Art and Public Unlimited, who recently surprised me with her cool, calm, and collected incredible knowledge in this subject. So our viewers today are definitely in for a treat.
I'm very excited to talk to you guys today. Again, thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedules to join us today. So Christine, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit, and I don't know why I'm not really, there you go. Tell us a little bit about, what's your story? How did you get here? What's your background? Let's just start with maybe, how did it all start?
okay. Well, I graduated from the University of Dayton in Dayton, Ohio, with a degree in journalism and art. But when I graduated, the year I graduated, the job market was really difficult. And so I took a position as the assistant display manager at a small clothing boutique in Dayton, Ohio. Now, fashion and design had always been my passion. So this was not an unexpected career move on my part. It was totally expected. In the next few years, after working in that small boutique, in the next few years, with really naive determination and optimism and a lot of hard work and luck, I was able and really fortunate to work with some of the most prestigious and directional retail organizations in the US and the UK and Canada. I started at Neiman Marcus in the United States, and I was a lowly, believe me, display girl, a lowly display girl. But Stanley Marcus, who founded the company, hired artists and set designers to come in when there was a store opening or to do windows or store interiors or events. And so I became part of a team of people whose sole mandate, if you can believe this, was to create magic every day. That was our job.
Amazing.
Now, how cool is that?
So we all need that right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So the other companies that I work with, Harrods in the UK and Creed's in Toronto, the companies had this same philosophy. So fast forward that to 1985, when I and 5 other people founded the Club Monaco retail chain. And what's very sweet about talking to you today, Clarissa, is that the founder of, and president of TPL Lighting, which is your parent company, Andy Pott, worked with George Yabu, Glenn Puschelberg, and Tara Brown of Yabu Puschelberg,
Yes,
and myself on the first lighting plan for the first Club Monaco on Queen Street West. So it's a really lovely 360-degree moment right now to be here
yes,
today.
Indeed.
Fantastic. Yeah, but Club Monaco brought everything together for me. It was all of a sudden, it was a new, it was a new type of retailing. The store became the window became the store. We had a cafe, we had a flower market, we had a boxing ring that was really the store window, but we took the store window inside to the center of the store. And Andy helped us put together a really incredible lighting package. There was obvious ambient lighting, but we had a lot of theatrical lighting that moved. And, it was like it was really like being a stagehand working there. We had gobos at the windows so that you could bring the store out to the sidewalk or bring Queen Street West into the store. This is Canadian Interiors. It's an issue of the magazine from 1985, and it shows the boxing ring I was talking about, which was really, we took the window, the store window, and we put it in the center of the store. And you can see all of the theatrical lighting around the edges. And in the lower right-hand corner is the exterior of the store. And, the lighting is, even when I look at it now, it's pretty cool. And this is another view of the inside of the store. And as I said, all of the units were on wheels. Everything could be moved, including the lighting.
Is this the original store? The one that on Queen right now?
Yeah, it's the original store. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it opened in 1985.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And in the bottom left-hand corner is the cafe.
Amazing.
Yeah. At one time during the store design, the owner of the company asked me to choose between air conditioning and a cafe. He chose the cafe.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So you were very much ahead of your time, because these type of concepts, more globally just started popping out not that long ago. So this is amazing that, the idea of having the display also being part of what you experience within the store.
Exactly. And what people may not be aware of is that Club Monaco was one of the first stores to sell men's and women's clothing in the same store. Like when we presented the concept to Eaton's, and I believe we presented to Eaton's in the Bay as a wholesale concept, they didn't understand it. They didn't understand that you could shop, that was appropriate to shop for men and women in the same store. So
That's
yeah,
insane.
it's great. But anyway, what I guess what I'm trying to demonstrate is that very early on and through my whole career is what Paul says. I live for lighting. I think if there's any project, the two things that just twist anything and turn it around are paint. It's so simple. It's paint and it's lighting.
Yeah.
So after 18 years at Club Monaco, my business colleague and best friend, Michelle Lloyd, and I founded Lloyd Ralph's Design. And we do commercial and residential design for clients throughout North America, mainly in the United States and Canada. So that's basically my background.
I'm trying to get back to you. There you go. So that's basically how everything that kind of connected and brought you to this. So tell us a little bit about you know, the story behind the Friends of University Avenue. How did everything come to life? How did you start thinking about it, and what's the story behind it?
Okay, do you have the picture of that vintage picture of
I certainly do.
Okay. Okay, so for people who aren't from Toronto, this is a beautiful vintage photograph of University Avenue. And I thought I'd just say a bit about it before we talk about why University Avenue. University Avenue is a major north-south boulevard that runs through the city of Toronto. It has 8 lanes of traffic, and down the center is a series of medians, of green medians. And I just heard the term, which I really love, it's a series of island parks. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
That's great. But it's Toronto's, if not one of Canada's, most ceremonial boulevards. It has fountains, monuments, statues, and it's also home to major hospitals that are world-renowned for patient care, research, and teaching. And our first phase of our project is going to concentrate on this area of Avenue Road, which is commonly in Toronto is called Hospital Row. University Avenue is also home to many of Toronto's most important institutions. The arts, they represent the arts, legal, financial, insurance, industries, embassies, and some really exciting, as we all know when we live in Toronto, some really exciting new residential and commercial developments are going to be happening on the street. So I've spent personally, this is started out as a very personal initiative. I've spent many, many hours on University Avenue. My husband was a patient at Princess Margaret Hospital for 4 years. And a year after he passed away, I was diagnosed with lung cancer. And so for the last 5 years, I've been a patient at Princess Margaret, and I've been on the boulevard many, many times. When I'm in the hospital, I see a microcosm of the city of Toronto. People of all ages, ethnicities, sexes, and I see the amazing work that's being done by the hospitals, the nurses, the doctors, the healthcare practitioners. It's absolutely incredible. But at the same time, when I started really paying attention, I saw people who were not as fortunate as I was. And I've been wanting for a long time to give back, and I've been thinking about how to do that on Hospital Row. Well, one evening in October of 2017, and it was a really dark October evening and cold, I left the hospital all by myself. And when I stepped out onto University, it came to me. I knew what I could do. I could illuminate University Avenue, and I could turn it into a beacon of hope and a source of beauty and inspiration for all the patients, caregivers, their families, and all of the people who use University Avenue as the main artery through the city day and night. So I mentioned that idea to some friends from the worlds of architecture and communications and landscape design, and the Friends of University Avenue was born. And now, 4 years, that's not 4 years yet, but 3 years later, the Friends of University Avenue is a nonprofit organization working with the city of Toronto. And I'm really happy to say that we're working really closely with the city of Toronto to realize our initiative, which is to reimagine University Avenue. It's now 2020, and I don't think any of us realized in 2017 that this initiative would have more relevance today than it did in 2017. With the advent of COVID, it's more important than ever to shine a light on the work that's being done on that street, on the frontline workers, and all of us, all of the citizens who've had to modify their lives for the common good. And I think too, and I'm not alone in thinking this, but it's also more important than ever that we realize that the greening of our cities and the importance of night lighting and making our cities places of calm and beauty and areas for respite has never been more important. And I think all of us, as a result, unfortunately, of this pandemic, have a new understanding of that. So, so our initiative, Reimagining University Avenue, is a program in 2 phases. And the first phase is lighting, illumination, and illuminating the trees and an added illumination, which Paul and Brad will show you, and planting. And phase 2 is a curated art program of public art, which Rebecca Carbon will cover. I wanted to say that the phasing of this project has been very influenced by the phasing of Park Avenue in New York. A lot of people don't know this, but Park Avenue that exists today with the programs was actually started by a private citizen. And she was an early conservationist, and she felt that it was her responsibility as a citizen to beautify the city that she lived in. And this, again, personal initiative has grown into the funds for Park Avenue, which is totally privately funded, by the way. And it includes a planting fund, a lighting fund, and a sculpture fund. And so this was this has been very, very inspirational for us. And Toronto can do this. We can do this.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. So we've had the enthusiastic support of Mayor John Tory, Councillor Joe Cressy, and Mike Layton. And we've had, and Brad and Paul will talk about this, we've had, and Rebecca too, we've had the active participation of the City of Toronto. And John Tory was really excited about this because he felt that this could be a template for a new kind of relationship between private citizens and the city. It gives the city and private citizens a chance to come up with projects that neither one of them might have thought about. And it also, which I think is the most exciting thing, is that for all of us as citizens, it gives us a chance to have a voice and a say and do something about the cities that we live in, which is really incredible. And who doesn't want to do that, right? So I also wanted to say that along the way, we've been really, really fortunate to have some great partners join us in this. Sheridan Nurseries, and I don't know how many of you know this, but the founder of Sheridan Nurseries actually did the first planting design for University Avenue.
And it's crazy how everything's, again, is coming back in full circle.
I know, it all comes full circle. And we also have Grand Trees as a partner, which is very, very exciting.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a launch date, which is, well, not a date, but we have a launch time period. Time frame, which is mid-April 2021. And that will coincide with Show Love TO, 2 city programs, Show Love TO, and then the Year of Public Art. So it's going to be a very busy and beautiful spring.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I want to turn it over to Paul, unless you have some questions.
No, I just wanted, before you turn it over to Paul and Brad and Rebecca, I just want to know, how did it come along for this team to be put together? How did you meet, or were you introduced to Paul and Brad and Rebecca? Is this something of an old relationship, or just how did this come together?
Well, I met Paul And Brad, were you at the first cocktail party? You were.
I was Paul's plus one.
Yeah.
Oh,
I feel like my recollection of it is kind of in Brad and I's kind of recollection of it is kind of interesting. We were invited by I think it was John Packer from Idea Workshop, and we were sitting in this cocktail party, and it's beautiful and lots of great food, and there's myself, Brad, and Steve and Kay, and we're lighting designers and artists that deal with light. And, you know, the presentation comes up and it's about lighting University Avenue. And I'm looking around, I'm like, we're the only lighting people here. I feel like this was a plant, you know, all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, will you guys be interested? And I thought, oh, this was an interesting, it felt like we were planted, but it was wonderful.
well, I was going to say that when I met Paul and Brad, they were in immediately. You know, a lot of people didn't know what the evening, I think a lot of people were kind of confused about what the evening is really about, but they were in immediately. And so, you know, obviously talented and enthusiastic. And it's been a joy. I hope you guys can say that. But
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
you know, it's really for all of us. It's been a real learning experience. It really has.
Well,
And it's
we were in from the
fun.
beginning because we saw the potential, but we also agreed with the problem, and we're willing to work on the solution, right? Like
Yeah.
your story kind of captured us, and we like you want to do good.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a real synergy between all of us. So like you said, we were in before we knew what it was.
Yeah. And I've never started a nonprofit before, believe me. And so I met with people who were doing work that I really admired. And one of them, Jerry Bertholtz, who was working for the Terry Fox Initiative, which Rebecca worked on. I said, you know, she said, well, you're going to have a lot. This is going to be difficult to steer through the city, and you need Rebecca Carbon. She said, you need Rebecca Carbon. Do not talk to anyone else. So I called Rebecca. You know,
Good
it
call.
was that simple. It was.
And she was in immediately?
Yeah, I think you were, weren't you, Rebecca? You were.
I was. I'm blushing. That's why I'm not on the video right now. But yes, I was.
Oh, well, every word of it is true. Believe me, every word of it.
Amazing.
So there is one more thing I want to say before closing, and then I'll be. I wanted to say that, you know, Reimagining University Avenue and the Friends of University Avenue it's all totally funded by private individuals. And we're really, really, really close to, you know, realizing the funds for the first phase of the project. But I wanted to say that we are actively seeking, this is part of my job, that we are actively seeking donations. So if there's anybody, and thank you all for coming, by the way, today, but if there's anyone who's interested in participating in any way or financially, please contact me directly. We'd so appreciate it. And that's it.
Thank you, Christine. Well, Brad, do you want to take the reign for the next a little bit? Tell us about, you know, how are you making this possible? I want to know a little bit about the how and what challenges, if any, and you know, the whole concept behind. Show us how it's looking, what we're going to be experiencing. How did you come up with this concept?
But yeah, Brad, I'll let you talk about it too. Maybe you can start off with a collaboration element. You said something earlier that was just way better than I would have put it.
Yeah, no, I just, this project is really, as I get a little older, I realize that like, when a collaboration is going smoothly, the project just becomes so much better. And very often when you're doing design, there's everyone kind of looking out for themselves where, you know, they want to control either, you know, how the lighting is, and the architect has their vision, the client has their vision. But on this particular project, it's been such a joy because everyone is swimming in the same direction for what it has to be, which is just, really bringing light, hope, and joy to University Avenue. And it's been a really great process with everyone kind of like backing each other up. If there's criticism, it's taken without ego. I think a big part of it is the team. Paul and I have worked together for years, and Christine and Rebecca are just so delightful. It's just been a really great process, and I think that this project has taught me a lot about how important it is to maintain the spirit of a good collaboration, because it's much more enjoyable, but I believe you get a better product. And what, this project has had a lot of challenges, between it's being citizen led, citizen funded, working with the city to allow us to do something weird. And it's just been, but at the same time, we've just been able to kind of navigate through that. And it's been a real great exercise and learning experience for me on how a collaboration should go.
Yeah, and I think it's like Christine had said earlier, it's this idea, maybe you just naturally bring this to the table, but you want, we feel like we can create magic with this team, just putting ideas together.
Yeah.
And I was, Brad and I have always, 3F minus and ourselves have loved to work together, because I find sometimes, I don't know, we just honestly, there's a bunch of ideas that have surfaced that have gotten us to where we are. And I literally have no idea whose idea was what. Like, I cannot think, I can never trace back the source of an idea. Who did what, who said this, it's just like, that's not a thing, which I love. And I think we were going to show, we're in phase 1 now, but I thought we would do 4 slides on kind of one of the first ideas we all kind of had. And you had said it originally, Christine, about this idea of like, a beacon of hope. And one of the first things that we really thought about was this idea of creating a magical moment, slide 2 here, of suspending something from the hospitals as a first element. We'll talk about why we pivoted in a second, but we thought this idea of an object, an illuminated object, a beacon, actually physically supported by the 4 hospitals would be such a magical element. And of course, obviously, that the intent was always to layer that in with also something on the street. But initially, this was going to be one of our first moves. And we took inspiration from other suspended elements. And it had been
Paul,
done before.
Are you moving? I'm not seeing you. Are you doing new slides? I'm still seeing the first slide.
Yeah, we're
shoot.
seeing the first slide.
Oh my God. Thanks for that. When you have multiple monitors, Brad, see? You and I, buddy.
Yeah.
So anyways, yeah, can you see it now?
Yes.
See the hospital support points.
Yeah, exactly. So we thought there'd be like a beacon of hope, and we really, looked to this idea of actually suspending something. We looked to some inspiration from some other elements that are suspended that are quite fantastic. And we thought in some way this might be an easier step because we're not actually touching the street, which can be difficult. So what was kind of cool about this, and Brad, you can talk about maybe a little bit about the concept.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that the idea of suspending something, was like, we knew there was going to be challenges with putting something on city property. So we thought, well, what if it just never actually touched the property? The other thought of putting something bright, high, and illuminated is that for the people who need beauty the most might be the people that are in the hospital rooms looking out the windows, and to have something that's at eye level that they don't have to look down to, but also just this natural affinity of like, or experience of on the street, like tilting your chin up and looking up is kind of this universal, I think, ocean of optimism. And so that was the idea of like suspending something beautiful, lit, and high. And there's this great narrative of like that the object of hope and beauty is connected and lifted by all the hospitals, in the same way that this precinct works really hard using its full campus for our benefit. Was really nice. And then, one of the things that I think one of one of the practices that I consider to have something kind of lasting and non-gimmickal is to like explore a phenomena. You know, phenomenon is always mesmerizing. And so one of the phenomena practices that we've been looking at as a studio practice is the Moiré effect. Moiré effect, for those who don't know, and it's okay if you don't, because it's not common knowledge, but it's this idea of taking two grids or two straight parallel line systems. And when you start to overlap them, you get this kind of buzzing and waving that happens. And you can see there by taking a normal grid and then a tilted grid, and when you overlap them, you get these repeated patterns. And when those grids start to bend in shape, if you want to advance the slide, when those grids start to bend in shape, you start to get these waves. And I don't know if you can make it out in your screens, but there's like these U's, these scallops that face through. And those waves, depending on movement, they start to like go through the form. And like, what better way to kind of create this mesmerizing moment of beauty and hope to unify everybody with this like dynamic sculpture that has waves exuding from it. And so we didn't have to add motion because most people on University Avenue are going up or down, whether you're on bike, foot, or in a car. So that animation would naturally happen. So this was the phenomena that we were looking at. And then the next slide, I can't remember what it is. This is just like a realization of like, okay, so we have this moire pattern, but it needs a heart or a center, and the thing itself needs to be illuminated. So we added this sculptural element in the middle that was made out of lenticular glass that had its own effect as lights would swirl through it. It really felt like this trapped scarf or energy or liquid, and then that would illuminate the mesh. And so we were really jazzed about this. And here's a rendering of what it would look like. And we were in deep talks with the hospitals on how to connect to their buildings temporarily, and everyone was behind it. And what was amazing is we sat at this table at the city with 20 people, and we gave this presentation. I was just waiting for people to say, no way, not in our city. And the response from some of them was incredible. You know, like I expected certain individuals to really, you know, kind of tell us what's wrong with this or the challenges with this project. But out of one of the individuals,
I don't get it.
someone
Sorry, can somebody, can everybody make sure that they're muted, please?
and then anyways, the one individual who I fully expected to say no way said, you know what, I spent a lot of time visiting those hospitals too, and that area could really benefit from something like that, which really just kind of speaks to the spirit of the project, that, you know, and how people agree that this is a good idea. And then Paul, I'll let you take from here.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and we'll move on to the next phase in this, you know, right away here, because we have a lot to talk about. But I think, you know, what was cool about this is just that literally we designed, like, this was fully designed to the point where, like, the hospitals had agreed to let us hang this structure from their buildings, had agreed to allow us to modify their curtain walls, you know, and the cladding on their buildings, you know, to put anchor points in. It was astounding. The city was supporting it. It was insane. You know, we were just blown away at the support. But I think, you know, we're all tired of hearing it, but I think there was a moment where we needed to pivot, just because we needed to, you know, the hospitals needed to focus on other things. And literally, we were at the point of pretty much 100%, you know, as far as design development, I guess, with full structural details and everything all in CAD drawn up when we were all kind of hit with the reality of COVID, and the hospitals kind of had to refocus. So we said, well, this is too important. We're not pausing. We're just pivoting. And Christine literally, like, the next day, okay, this can't happen. The city wasn't even going to look at drawings at that point. They were all very loaded up. So it's like, next, you know, we just shifted gears. We just went in another direction, and not really another direction. We moved the what we wanted to do on the street up to the first phase. You know, we just kind of pivoted really quickly and started to really think about the street and what we could, you know, just realizing that part of essentially Christine's vision, which really is, and I'm happy with the pivot. Actually, I think in the end, the way this is going to unfold and roll out is in a way a little more organic, and the word better isn't the right word, but just I feel like maybe this is a better first move in the end anyways. It really feels right now that we're getting to this point. And essentially, you know, the scheme was really simple. We want to light up, you know, University Avenue. We chose this area because of its proximity to the hospitals. And also, you know, there's a budget and you have to establish a scope, right, and an area to cover. So we chose this area essentially from Elm to College. And, you know, we thought what layering and what lighting can we add? Being it is a lighting project first and foremost, you know, what lighting can we add to the street? We really felt like we have to do simple things like Christine always says, and I mean, I'm all in, but just lighting up a tree is beautiful. We don't light up enough trees. And maybe, you know, there are dark sky compliance and there's other things and bird, you know, environmental and ecological reasons. We don't use a lot of uplight, but I think in controlled situations, we should still look at uplight and look at lighting things like trees, you know, you have to light trees from the ground. So I think we really looked at some really interesting landscape layers of just like, let's light the trees. And we started to think about, you know, how we would light the trees. And you know, we're actually thinking of more of like a side lighting of the trees to light the canopies, not uplighting. So that, you know, when you think about people, we often as lighting designers have to think about where are people looking at the things we're lighting. They're not under the trees looking up. So we shouldn't be lighting up inside them. They're on the street looking along the street, so they're looking at the canopies. So we're actually going to side light the trees, not uplight the trees. A simple realization, but you kind of get those when you really, as a designer, you start to think about where people are going to view your thing that you're lighting. Sometimes that people don't necessarily stop to think about that. So we also had some ambitions for some projections and gobos as well. And these are all kind of levers that we can use with our budget to kind of manage and layer them in if we can. We also have ambitions to light the monuments. This may happen in the next phase, not in this phase, but we also do have plans to light monuments on University as well. We just think monuments need to be lit, especially when they're lit carefully. They're beautiful. They take on a different life at night. But there was something, kind of this realization that, again, who knows, Brad, myself, whatever, Christine, who knows, who came up with this, you know, there's a thought of what happens when half the year in Canada, you know, we lose our canvas, right? Like, you know, half of the time it's going to sit October to April in this state, no planting, totally gray, no leaves on the trees. So we really started to think about another layer that was needed. And I think, you know, this idea of light and sculpture that was in our first idea. We wanted to have light and sculpture. I think Brad's team it's just the idea of something that's static being dynamic because you're moving. The moray effect was something we wanted to keep going. So we evolved, and I don't know, Brad, if you want to talk about a little more about the reeds, but we just thought something like this, a vertical element in the, you know, in the planters works well with, you know, the planting and the greenery and the trees, you know, the kind of biophilic nature of it all, I guess. We just thought a reed really started to make sense. So, Brad, if you want to talk a little more. I guess I'll finish this one thought. One other thing we wanted to think about a little bit was the dynamic element of it, is that, you know, this is the lighted blue, which was, you know, COVID and the frontline worker tribute. But I think these systems, although colored light, when used carefully, can really communicate a message. You know, we resonate, colors resonate with whether it's events, like I said, it has an emotional impact. So it's a way that light can communicate through movement, and color is a way we can physically communicate with light. So we knew that color changing needed to be an element as well. So we wanted an element in there that we could really control carefully to communicate. So
yeah, so I mean, it's a tall order, right? Like, we have to make the islands beautiful year-round. They can't be dated or tired. They need to contribute to when there is a lot of healthy foliage, like leaves and grass and tall grasses and plants, but also during winter when it's really like dour and dry and very unhospitable. So in the theme of this moire phenomena, we started to look at what if the reeds were regularly spaced and could create that kind of wave, and also laying out a carpet for the crystal when we do it, when the timing is right. I mean, also like definitely appreciating that the frontline workers themselves deserve some sort of monument or tribute to the hard work and risk that they've been putting in, as well. Like the original focus was providing beauty and hope and something pleasant to people who were either recovering or helping someone recover. But this whole process kind of opened up that like the frontline workers deserve it as well. And so these were some studies of these, the concept of doing light fixtures that work in concert for a greater sculptural element, but also have this moire effect. And these were fast studies done. We do a lot of mock-ups over here, and then looking at like these were paper ripples that were of course we're going to be broken down into pickets, but we do this to kind of get a sense of scale and cost, because there is a finite budget. And so this was an analysis of the strip in which we would accomplish. And then Paul, maybe you want to speak to the challenges of tying into an existing structure?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a budget, and that running new power and data infrastructure to control the lights and power the lights under University Avenue would be our budget done. So we really had to be creative as to using existing power outlets, existing power. We'll still thinking very creatively as to how we connect all of these elements too in a cohesive way, which we have some interesting ideas. But we wanted to use existing power to do this, and existing infrastructure, because infrastructure just eats budget. It's not. We just can't touch it. So, and these are some initial just rhino studies that we did together. Think about form and how they might lay out, how they could drift in and out of the planters as well.
Yeah, so like these are all of these kind of like you start to funnel down to, okay, so we can make a sculpture, a linear sculpture that creates a moire pattern that adds kind of light and interest on a micro scale, but also on a macro scale onto the boulevard. And this here, we were pretty strong that they should drift in and out of planters so that they're not kind of boxed into these narrow planters. And then we started to physically mock these things up, like how would they look, how big is too wide. This here, this U-shaped channel is the end of a long study of like what's the shape that we should be using. We did look at like an H structure that was first out of the gun, but it felt too sterile and cold. And again, remembering that reeds were selected for this because of their tie into nature, and something more curved like this is more interesting. And this is me doing fast studies, just like, well, maybe we should look at how does nature pull off its elegance, and how does it pull off its structural integrity, because our engineer is telling us that these things will twist. So we started looking at, these are me taking clippings from my garden and fridge. These three were the ones that kind of communicated to me on like things to pull out from, which was our ribs, thicker in the middle, kind of these finite pinches at the end. And so we started to 3D print extrusions that were based on nature, both for their elegance, but also their structural idea, and that just curve the lip on one of them to hide in an LED to kind of pull out. And you can see there on the left there, you're really starting to get those extrusions from celery or bamboo or hosta grass or hosta leaves. And then, after we 3D print them, we start, we put them together and we start painting them. And I think there's some more slides here of some of the more successful extrusions. What's really great is that like this light really happens, and then you throw down a spine on it, and then you have an object that glows. Mm-hmm. And if you advance some more slides, we decided that on the micro, there's this opportunity for texture. And what's nice is that, extruded channels or coves are very common in lighting, but I don't think it's really been explored of like, instead of light just being this like unknown, this Turellian, like you don't know if it's 6 inches away from you or 6,000 feet. This idea of like, well, wait, like we can be honest and celebrate that there's something happening here. And so this version here is really close to where we landed. And what's great is the economy of this is great as solving a problem for, we need hundreds of these. We need kilometers of this as an extrusion. So we're going to have a custom extrusion tap done. And then we just press these throughout an aluminum factory and then just cut them on an angle and they're done. And then we put the LED tape in that little cove. And by virtue of it just being a clean extrusion cut on an angle, we find there's this real minimal elegance to it that has a nod to nature. But at the same time, there's no finishing required. There's no top caps, there's no bottom caps. It's just done. And we're really excited about how it all just kind of slowly came together through iteration and conversation. This is a good slide of a mock-up that we did a few weeks ago. It was crazy windy, so forgive the tilt. We actually have people holding them up. But for scale, the 3 purple ones in the middle are 3D printed extrusions, but we wanted to see what it looked like as a collection. So we just used rain gutters for the rest and spray painted them white. But as a collection, you can see how they start to work in concert to create this kind of overall sculpture. And a slide like this, I don't know if everybody gets excited about it, but I do, because I can see that times 100.
I've got goosebumps, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
imagining walking by there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and we have there's a couple. And there's a base color here that we're going to apply. And like, I think what you see here is really the effect of a couple lights in this mock-up hooked up to a little generator, a little gas generator. But I mean, we're going to have 50 or 60 of these lights lighting the trees, so that the scale is going to be, 10, 12x this. So it's going to be quite amazing to have all these canopies lit, have a base element framing these reeds. And, we're learning a little bit about, the scale of the reeds, and we're studying that a little bit right now, maybe narrowing them. I think on site, we were really, we actually liked the dimension of this flagpole as well as kind of an element. And of course, keep in mind, like from a rigidity standpoint, the structural standpoint, it would be as rigid and structural as a light post. It's going to be, we are not encouraging, but if people were to climb on it, it would be fine. So they are going to be very, although they are very structurally sound, we want them to feel light. And I think, there's also some experimentation of maybe moving them or tilting them as well. But, the lights in them are going to provide a lot of animation in addition to the moire effect potentially as well. Because actually each picture shot of it, this is close enough. Each, every 2 inches is actually effectively controlled separately. So we can get movement of light up and down the reeds. And so it's going to be spectacular. And that's our next series of tests, is to scale up some of the programming. Brad and I, before this call, had a long talk trying to figure out how we're going to control it, because we want to be careful. It can't be gimmicky. It's got to be timeless. The moire effect is going to be very animated in its own, but that's for people moving on the street. We want people to stand there, or standing on the side also, to appreciate movement. So we're playing around with how we might control these and connecting them to some external element maybe. We talked briefly about the idea of, as an external element, that would, if they were all listening to an audio feed or something via Wi-Fi, or a network, you have Wi-Fi everywhere. If all of these separate islands, which aren't connected, are listening to an audio feed or something, they could be controlled in unison in a way that doesn't mean we have to connect with cables, which is kind of interesting, because now we have this beautifully interconnected lighting installation with no extra cabling or wiring, and we didn't have to spend $500,000 on infrastructure to do it. So, Brad and I are at that phase now where we're
and the last thing I just want to say, just for people out there who consider mock-ups, mock-ups are really important not to see as like a tick off that just kind of gives people confidence that you're going in the right direction. I can speak for myself and Paul that the real value of a mock-up to us is their opportunities to make changes, right? It's not about stroking our egos and saying like, see, it's exactly what I said, good. It's you know, there was some real feedback that came back from, are they too thick? And I think they might be. You don't really know until you do it full scale. Could they be further separated apart? Maybe. Because it was windy, they started to tilt, but they all tilted together. And instead of a linear moire effect, you started to have a rising moire effect, kind of like a barber pole on its side. And there's something worth value in there too. So it's really important that mock-ups are done early and that are done with like really wide vision as an opportunity to improve, not just a step on the way to a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and that's I would say that's the end. I know we're coming close to the end, so we talked briefly about how we might control it, but I think that's probably not. It's not yet figured out, but there is an idea of even if you can't hear it, using audio over the internet as a way to synchronize the movement, which is interesting. But this is still very early in our investigation. We want some cohesive movement. And I think the last thing we should mention is the planting as well. Just quickly, is that there is a planting program with this, so that the planting is going to align with the reed structure, so that the reeds are actually sitting in planting, so that it's not just overlaying lighting, it's thinking about how the planting then can respond to the reeds. So it's a holistic, reinvigoration of these what you call island parks, if you will. So.
And one of the biggest like if this was on private property on a small scale, that would be challenging enough for all of this coordination. But Segway, it's really hard to do with the city. And I think Rebecca has some points to talk about the challenge of navigating a project like this, which, from the continuous reads to the suspended portion to the rotating art proposal. Like, I think Rebecca has some really good insight on how to get through all that.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Is that my invitation to start talking?
You can say
That's a
something.
segue,
So
no?
sorry. I was looking at the clock like, oh my God, we gotta.
Yes. But
All right. Well, first of all, thanks, Clarissa, again for having us on this podcast, and thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. Thanks, Paul and Brad, for walking us through those particular kind of parts of the evolution of a design. I know it's really amazing to think about all of the steps that go into something just appearing in the public realm. It's really not that simple. And I particularly liked the sliced celery insight.
Yes, me too.
There is a use for your vegetables in your fridge.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Of course we eat them, of course. Anyway, so thanks. And of course, thanks most of all to Christine for your vision and tenacity, which is why we're actually all having this conversation today. So I came onto this project because I was inspired by the idea of being part of a vision wherein a group of citizens saw a real need and opportunity to have impact in the built environment of their city. Toronto has seen some success in this type of citizen-led city building in the past with Evergreen Brickworks and the Bentway. And having had some level of involvement with both of those projects, I got really excited about the possibility of helping Christine and the friends build the relationships with public and private partners that were needed to pull this off. So this initiative, just as with the Brickworks and Gardner, is really about looking at what we have and realizing that with a little more care and attention, we can make a forgotten or neglected space become so much more, as to even become a landmark place within the city. And really looking around the world, an avenue of this size and stature would be a signature grand avenue in just about any other place, a place where people, make sure that they have walked along that street when they do visit the city. And as Christine mentioned before, University Avenue really is this kind of spine that connects some of the best of what we have to offer in terms of education and civics and business and commerce and culture, with the opera and the ballet and the Gardner and the AGO all sort of along its spine, as well as, of course, really, our world-class healthcare and health sciences is all sort of clustered around University Avenue. So to think that we can do so much with just kind of loving what we already have is a really inspiring, showing more love to what we already have is a really inspiring idea. So my role has really been to help this group of motivated private citizens navigate the complexities of working with the city and the various partners involved, and in particular navigating where this initiative fits in the context of the city's own master plan for University Avenue, which has a 40-year lifespan. So what are the best ways for a small, nimble group of sharp and sort of motivated individuals with a neat idea? What are the best ways for a group like that to work collaboratively with this large, complex public body that is operating on a 40-year time frame? And it's been interesting working with this group over the past, what has it been, like 18 months or something, to get to where we are today. And I raise all this as well because while we're close to delivering this phase of Reimagining University Avenue that Paul and Brad have taken us through, this is really only the beginning of what Christine and the Friends vision entails. And the longer term vision includes an ongoing program of changing temporary public artworks, very similar to the Park Avenue model in New York, which you're probably familiar with. This changing program of work is really an essential part of the Friends reimagining of the Avenue. We're thinking about this as a model for exploring different ways of bringing art to the public realm with different approaches to acquiring work that may include commissions, may include loans from galleries or exchanges with other organizations that are sort of running similar programs in other municipalities, et cetera. And exploring these different ways of bringing art into the public realm is really something that will be unique within the City of Toronto public art landscape. As well, bringing a program that offers this kind of temporary, changing, high caliber public art simultaneously offers a new and exciting opportunity, as I said, within the public art landscape, while also ensuring that the Friends vision can continue to have this dynamic presence within the context of the city's 40-year plans for University Avenue. So it's this really interesting navigating between highly nimble, changing, and very, very long-term plans that are very slow-moving. And somewhere in between, we have this Reimagining University Avenue magic. And I think it's just important to raise again, as Christine mentioned in her comments, the fact that this is an initiative that really relies on galvanizing support from numerous parties and individuals. And it's a project that will only be realized by inspiring Torontonians to become part of shaping this vision and shedding light on this example of a hidden gem within our built city, and thinking about what happens when a little extra care and attention is given to our public spaces. And I don't know if we're having questions or anything like that, but I think we're out of time, so.
No, don't worry. Whoever needs to go, they can go. We still have a large amount of people here, so that's really, really good. It speaks, I think, a lot about what you guys are making, the fact that, you know, it's been an hour and there's still a lot of people here. Is there anything else that you want to add, Rebecca? I mean, has there been any specific real challenge that you personally have maybe not encountered with other type of projects before, similar projects, since you have so much experience with these type of initiatives?
I think it's one of the, I mean, the biggest challenge really is just, is sort of, navigating when you come up with a new process or a new project and you are facing a system that has all of these processes in place for the known projects, and you come up with this new model, and there can be this response to, instead of just say, oh, well, that's new, let's figure out how to make that happen, the response is sometimes, well, that's new, we don't have a process for that, we better come up with a process for, you know, evaluating that and all of these kind of obstacles. So I think the biggest thing has just been that interface between the group that really just want to do something and the challenges of working, as I said, with this kind of large system that's not used to things moving quickly. And we have a lot, as Christine said, tremendous political support from the city in doing this, which is wonderful. And really, if you think about it, why wouldn't we?
I really want to, first of all, before questions come, really, really thank you, Christine. Again, I mean, and the team obviously behind it. Like you can really, really see the passion and the love and the wanting to do good behind the team for this project. It's about time, I think, that a city like Toronto, I mean, we have a beautiful public arts and everything, but a place like University Avenue where I remember me, like I'm not from Toronto, as you probably all know. And for me, literally one of the first times that my now husband drove me down that avenue, I was literally in awe by the grandness of it. And I remember the sun was actually setting. We were actually going to move downtown Toronto. And that just avenue just made me feel, wow, like this girl from an island is literally living like in this other big city. I was in New York before, and it was literally like another Park Avenue. And, you know, for those that have had I'm not going to say like the benefit because it's not, but like that have had to go to these type of hospitals. And, you know, I personally, Christine and I connected when we were talking about it. I've had an experience where I had to be there, and it's so big and it feels cold. And when you're feeling so vulnerable, it's just not really a place that you necessarily want to be, even though it is the best place to be. But the fact that you're bringing this at such a street level and such like a human level, not just artistically, but also emotionally and structurally, I think it's just brilliant. And I think this is such an incredible team that you've put together with your hard work and your passion for this project and your story, that I think you should be very proud of yourself, because this is a legacy and this is going to be part of this city's persona. And this team is going to create not just a landmark for Toronto, but you guys are gonna, you know, like that nurse that emailed you, Christine, saying, thank you, because we need this. And, you know, giving people hope through art and light, it's, you know, our job as not just designers, but as citizens to be able to want more of this. So again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
You guys are, I mean, amazing. Rebecca, you're brilliant as well. So I'm very happy that I got to know you. And I see a lot of comments. Basically, everybody seems very excited about this. You know, from exciting, fantastic thinking and great ideas. Somebody's comparing it, Matt Henning actually comparing it with Nuit Blanche in 2013. So, and there's even talk about a documentary now. So you guys might, you know, be doing that, be popular on that.
Someone mentioned that. I'm like, anyone want to help?
I'll help.
We film everything, and one of our team members was a cinematographer, so we do film everything. We film the mock-up. We just film everything. But yeah.
Yeah. And first of all, I'm going to bring something that Fenwick Banal mentioned. He said, I've heard that originally there was a proposal that the center space of University Avenue was proposed to be a canal. Have you guys ever heard of this before?
I've never heard of that. Have you, Rebecca?
I have not.
No.
But
Okay, well, maybe we'll dig a little bit into
it would be very cool.
Yeah.
It would be. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Claudia Capel has, hi Claudia, she has another comment. She says, amazing initiative, thank you for sharing your vision and process. My question as a small lighting design studio is about sustaining such passion and energy over time. It was already mentioned that the current stage with City took 18 months already. How are you planning this efforts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, from a design studio, I mean, and we were a bit larger, but we're still pretty small. Like essentially the lighting design part is 10 people. So, but I mean, it's difficult. It's not difficult to keep the energy, the inspiration going, but yeah, to actively stay engaged in a project that long, actively stay engaged in the creative process, and not is, you know, can be challenging. But I think internally we have a good team as well. Like Brad and I pass off energy, and I think Rebecca and Christine, everybody kind of feeds off each other. We have a lot of chargers in the wall, maybe. It's like when one battery goes dead,
Yeah.
it's one. I think it is the collaboration. We're not alone. It's not just like the lighting designer, maybe that's us on this project, is the only one driving this. It's like all of us. So that helps, I would say.
I think it helps to surround yourself with like non-vibe mooches, like people that have like in order to maintain enthusiasm, you kind of need to hang around people that do that. And those
Pollyannas.
what's that?
What's
The
that?
Pollyannas.
Yes.
Yeah.
The people who are like, yes, we can do it. Oh, no, not right now. Okay, maybe in a little bit.
You guys, you guys feel though, I think, that the four of us have been in so many meetings with the city, and certainly you've been in more, but every time we go to a meeting and we have a success and somebody shakes their head and says yes, it really fires you to go on. Don't you agree? I mean, like, because it doesn't, it's been, the support we've had, I think, Rebecca, I think it's been quite remarkable. And,
Yeah, it has for sure.
So I think, that kind of charges you on too. When people Brad said earlier, there was, I won't mention names, but there was somebody who none of us thought this was going to fly with him. And at the end, he came up and we were just shocked. So it's been very rewarding in that way. Yeah.
I also think just like as a way of keeping momentum is that like it's so easy to say no, right? Because you say no and it's done. It's just like then you don't have to do any more work. The yes is harder. And I think I really believe that this team has it, where they have the kind of best of both world response to a yes or a no. So if someone says yes, you're like, right? Like, what a great idea, right? And if they say no, you're like, well, I'll show you. And so it's just like you end up in either scenario, you're motivated. And so I would aspire everyone to have that affinity.
Good. Is there any other question? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask it, or write it in the chat. And if not, I'm going to close this off.
I joined and I snuck into here.
Hi, Andy.
There's Andy.
Nice caught.
Was not here.
Andy.
Snuck into this under somebody else's name. I'm not Jennifer. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Andy.
Rebecca, hi. I don't know you, but hello. And Paul, good to see you. And this looks fantastic. Brilliant. Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you, Andy. You can tell that Andy is in not in Toronto. Yes, thank you so much, and thank you, to TPL obviously for giving the opportunity for the Adelaide project to exist, and for us to be able to have a space to show that collaboration is key, and not just in the design community, in projects, etc., but just in normal daily lives. So thank you for that. And just to close off, if there's no other questions, I want to make sure that, following with what Christine was mentioning, I want to make sure that I show everybody that there is a website for Reimagining University Avenue, where you can read more. It is friendsofuniversityav.org, and you can go, read a little bit more, and you can always reach out to donate. Obviously, we all want to make sure that this happens, and the more the merrier. How incredible would be that, even if it's a little bit, to be able to be part of this project. There's no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no small or big enough that you can do to be part of this. So I speak for myself, and I'm sure I speak for everybody here, how lucky we would all be to have something like this in our city. So again, thank you, and thank you to this incredible team for the effort and the love and passion that you've put into this. And, like citizens, private citizens can actually, change a city. So maybe this will motivate everybody to learn how to do that too. So again, thank you so much. And I hope that you all have a great day, and that you stay safe, and that this served as a little bit of inspiration in these weird times. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. Really, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.